Well, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says the raising of the debt ceiling was a victory for Democrats.
Tonight's vote is a good outcome because Democrats did a very good job taking the worst parts of the Republican plan off the table, and that's why Dems voted overwhelmingly for this bill, while Republicans, certainly in the Senate, did not.
William Lee is the chief economist at the nonpartisan think tank, the Milken Institute. He's with us live from Los Angeles. So thank you very much indeed for being with us. So obviously, Democrats and Republicans are both going to claim credit for this deal. As far as the global economy is concerned, is this as good a deal as they are making out?
Well, as far as the markets are concerned, any deal that allows the debt ceiling to be lifted is a good deal, because the one thing that the markets cannot stand is the possibility of a default of the most foundational asset in the U.S. In the global markets, which is U.S. Treasuries. Every asset in the world is priced off of U.S. Treasuries. If there was some question put into whether the value of the Treasuries were real or not, that would wreak havoc throughout the system.
The level of cooperation that we've seen with regard to this debt ceiling negotiation is quite different in tone, at least, to the ones that we've seen in the past. Certainly the ones during the Trump administration were, shall we say, somewhat heated at times. This seems to be a lot calmer. There was a point back at 2011, if I remember, that the US lost its AAA rating. Do you think that, at least in part, has been at the backs of everybody's minds with regard to these negotiations?
Well, that is absolutely the question that you should be asking, and what I think market participants themselves are asking. In 2011, Standard & Poor's said to essentially both parties, what the deal you've collected to knock together is something that will not allow the deficit and debt to go on a sustainable trajectory. In other words, you have done nothing to really cap spending in a way that is sustainable. And right now, I think we can say the same thing. This deal is, in some sense, a phony deal, because what caps were put on expenditures are only put on 11% of the budget. The bulk of the budget is being pushed up by mandatory expenditures, entitlements, and those are going to continue to grow faster than GDP. And meanwhile, the markets themselves are wondering whether or not the U.S. will be able to hang on to its AAA rating from Fitch and Moody's. Fitch has already warned that they may reconsider unless the deal is a solid one. And so far, this deal is, at best, a tentative one.
How do we see that playing out in terms of the markets at the moment? That uncertainty, as you mentioned before, the markets obviously hate uncertainty, but it's nevertheless still there. What do you think the repercussions are going to be?
We're already seeing doubts about the value of holding U.S. Treasuries as part of the sovereign wealth. The largest holders of U.S. Treasuries, Japan and China, have already reduced their holdings by about 15% over the last year. And I think other countries are reconsidering. Unfortunately, there really are no alternatives right now, and the dollar dominance will stay with us for some time. But again, markets are thinking of alternatives, and that is not good for the U.S. Treasury.
When this was originally making its way through Congress, Kevin McCarthy, the Republican Speaker of the House of Representatives, came in for a lot of flack from the hard-line conservatives in the Republicans. Given the fact that he's been able to push this through, do you think he's going to be, in future, he is going to be bearing that pressure in mind when it comes to making other decisions of a similar nature?
I think the fact that he had to rely on the opposition party in order to pass this legislation says a lot about how weak his position really is. And in some sense, it was a very clever stroke on the part of President Biden during the State of the Union address to put the entitlements and the portions of the budget that really are needing to be addressed to contain the deficit and contain the debt. He put that off the table by essentially declaring you're not going to put the burden of deficit reduction on the backs of the retirees and Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid recipients, are you? And the Republicans all say, oh, no. And that did it. Now, again, Fitch is not going to stand by and take that answer, because they know that 88% of the budget has not been addressed. And I think they're going to ask for some action going forward.
Really interesting to get your thoughts on this. William Lee, we appreciate you being with us on Al Jazeera, sir. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks for having me.